Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. We are here today, Wednesday, and this is the Institute of Metaphysical Science that sponsors these live streams. You can look at our website at https://scientificmetaphysics.org, and that's where you can find all of our programs and things like that. So, welcome. We are going to continue our exploration of the book The Biology of Belief, which I have a bookmark in here, but The Biology of Belief, and relating that also to metaphysical science. So we've got some more really good things coming out of this book, which is just a lot of fun to engage with. And so anyways, I'm here with Betty Albee. Betty, welcome.
Thank you.
And those of you who are on today, if you have any questions or anything like that, just go ahead and post them in the comments, and we're happy to answer any of those questions. So, any rate, okay, Betty, let's get into this. So, where do we start today?
Well, I've been very interested. What's happened is that Dr. Lipton, in writing this book, has come up with the information, if I can put it that way, that they haven't really worked with the idea of the mental nature of things. He talks about the Newtonian platform that most scientists are based on, which is that everything is physical, and he works with all the laws of the governing of matter, as he calls it. And he says what nobody has ever reckoned with is that the cells that comprise the human body are actually thought makers. They're thinking. They do things that nobody tells them to do. You know, they figure out where to go and what to do and how to do it and where to pair up and where not to, all on their own. You know, when you swallow a piece of food, for instance, all that stuff decomposes and all the cells use what they need of it and nothing else. They go where they need to go and take care of that area that they specialize in. And he says they do specialize. They go and take care of a certain area, and that's all they do. And others take care of other areas, and they don't interfere with each other. He says it's truly amazing. So we're really looking at somebody who's discussing biology, which is a physical science, and finding out that there is a whole lot of it that wouldn't be effective at all if you didn't recognize that a lot of it is mental.
Sure.
We used to think genes determined everything about us. He's proven without a doubt that they have nothing to do with what we decide to do and how we do it and so on. But he said the cells are all thought makers, and they move around and do what's intelligent within the sphere that they have decided to work in.
Right. And that gets at this whole thing of thought, right? So we were talking earlier about this, but
Right.
Thought is really that, you know, say more about that, is the causative functioning consciousness, if you will.
Well, thought constitutes being.
Yeah.
It's the action of being.
Right.
You know, if you have universal being, universal intelligence, it's all mental, it's all thought in action. And we have the language, which is the way that we choose individually to see and understand who we are and what's going on.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we think that things are bound up in what we're looking at, the language of our own understanding. But the language is not the thing. Mm-hmm. It's just the best way I can see it at the moment. But It changes all the time, because as I move on in my own understanding, the way I experience it, the way I live it shifts.
Yeah.
And then I discover that there are people writing about this as it's happening every day in all the physical sciences too.
Yeah.
So of course, but I do find encouraging that the language is being explored as energy. Yeah. He considers thought and thinking mental processes is energy. Energy in action is the mechanism of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right. So the chapter specifically, if those of you are following or have the book or you get the book, the chapter that we're really looking at today is the chapter called Biology and Belief. So that's the chapter that we kind of explored, and we pulled different things in that we want to discuss and talk about.
Well, we kind of did some quick stuff on the chapter before that, the new physics.
Mm-hmm.
I love the subtitle, Planting Both Feet Firmly on Thin Air.
That is good. That is good. Because a lot of, the thing is that planting both feet firmly on thin air, here's the thing. So that, I think it correlates directly to that which we see, that which we observe in our world, that we think is real, that we think that stuff actually exists. And the truth is, if it's all energy moving at really high speed, always in motion, then everything is always maybe so, maybe not.
Well, it's what I see, feel, hear, taste, and touch, which is my language world. It's the world of appearances. That's all point of view.
Yeah.
That's all the best view I've got of what this energy is all about.
Correct.
And so it shifts when I see it differently. The language that I require to understand it shifts. It looks different.
Yeah.
And in practicing metaphysical science, that makes all the difference between living healthy, wealthy, and wise, and stumbling around in the dark.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that's part of it. It's all in terms of that. I mean, we're even looking at what you view in your external world, and how constrained you feel by it, or how hemmed in you feel by it, or whatever you look out there and you try and move things around out there so that you can feel better, that things will be okay, is all just part of the mirage. It's part of the lie, really.
Yeah, well, a small example, I'm using this mostly from the metaphysical point of view right now. But for example, if I'm living with the fact that energy functions perfectly,
mm-hmm.
and it's whole and it's complete, then I have an interruption to that view of things, and it looks like things are not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do as human beings is look for a way to relieve that symptom, whatever it is, that discomfort, that thing that seems out of place.
Right.
And we often, and in fact largely do, think that whatever relieves that symptom is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true, you see. Symptoms require that you be responsible for having that occur as a wake-up call in your life, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So when a symptom comes up, if I quick grab an aspirin, I think that solved it. I don't have the headache anymore. It's gone. Life is great.
Right.
But it comes back. Anytime that some disturbance comes along, I'm subject to that because I think the symptom was in the picture with the headache.
Right.
And I think that the relief of the symptom was in the picture with the headache, and it's not.
Right.
You just said that backwards. But anyway, as an example, and Dr. Lipton in his book wrote this, and I'd like to read it to you.
Okay.
He says, and this is really, I think, a classic example because we do this a lot. But he says hundreds and upon hundreds of other scientific studies over the last 50 years have revealed that invisible forces of the electromagnetic spectrum profoundly impact every facet of biological regulation. And then he goes on and he says, as an example, that wait a minute, I turned the page. I'm looking for, he says, for example, our drug mania reminds me of a job of an auto dealership I held while in graduate school. He said at 4:30 on Friday afternoon, an irate woman came into the shop. Her car's service engine light was flashing. Even though her car had already been repaired for that same problem several times, here she was. At 4:30 on Friday afternoon, who wants to work on a bulky problem and deal with a furious customer? Says everyone was quiet except one mechanic who said, "I'll take care of it." So he got in the car and pulled it into the back shop. And then he got into the dashboard, and what he did was remove the light that was flashing, threw the bulb in the trash, closed the dashboard back up, got himself a can of cola and a cigarette, and sat there and spent the appropriate amount of time before he could take the car back up front. So he eventually took it back up and he said, everything's just fine. And the woman was thrilled to have that taken care of right away. And she got in the car, and sure enough, no light came on. And so she drove off being delighted that it had all been taken care of. She never knew that all he did was throw the light bulb away. Now, a lot of us do that with taking pills.
Yeah.
You take a pill, the symptom disappears, and you take no responsibility for what it is in your living of yourself that had that show up, like a wake-up call.
Right.
Something's not balanced here. Take a look. Instead, we take a pill. And lo and behold, the symptom goes away. All things are well.
Right. And there's a quote right from the book that says, using drugs to silence a body's symptoms enables us to ignore personal involvement we may have with the onset of those symptoms.
Yeah. There's a responsibility, a personal responsibility involved in living your life at all times.
Yeah.
And you know when something's off kilter. And if you ignore it, it's going to show up in symptoms in your body.
Yeah.
And then you want to eliminate the symptoms. So instead of taking responsibility for taking a look and saying, yeah, how come that's showing up? You know, in scientific metaphysics, we would say, well, all is infinite mind. Perfection is fundamental. Suppose we ignored that. The symptoms will reoccur and reoccur and reoccur.
And they do. And they do for the most part.
And they get worse.
Right. And he goes on to say, overuse of prescription drugs provides a vacation from personal responsibility. So in the manner of being yourself, being the divinity of yourself wholly, then taking a drug or not taking a drug isn't where the solution resides.
Right. See, we forget, way back in Shakespeare's day, he said there's a divinity that shapes our ends.
Mm-hmm.
And there is. I don't exist by chance.
Right.
I exist because being is present.
Right.
Always has been, always will be.
Yes. But the thing that I like is this next quote that says, the fact is that harnessing the power of your mind can be more effective than the drugs you have been programmed to believe you need.
Yep.
That to me is a quintessential statement of personal responsibility and power that's available to each individual willing to grab that brass ring and have that power.
Yeah, and live themselves free and whole.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you said, treating a symptom so it disappears doesn't provide the freedom. It provides momentary relief. Because all it does is suppress that symptom.
Yep.
Right? But the fact is that harnessing the power of your mind can be more effective than the drugs you've been programmed to believe you need. And if you can get that, the power of the mind, and I go back to when I was watching, I'm taking this cryptocurrency class, and I was watching this this whole thing about computers and machines and this and that. And this gal had these electrodes hooked up to her head on the machine, and she was actually by her mind controlling this remote control little Jeep that was running around the floor, when it would stop, when it would start, when it would turn left or right. And she was doing it all from these electrodes plugged in, just from the power of her mind.
You told us about that last week.
I know. And this brought it up again. It's like, because there's so much power with each one of us.
Mm.
And yet we barely scratch the surface of that power in our lifetimes.
Yeah. Mostly we don't discover it. You know, we have a phrase that we use a lot in metaphysical science, and it's called self-discovering. When you discover who you are, you have unimaginable power. You have all it takes to live every aspect of your life with peace and joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And well-being.
That's right. And there's more, you know, there's more to this story, right? So if we go to the next one, just think about this. When it comes to sheer neurological processing abilities, the subconscious mind is millions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. And they go on to say, you know, if you know, all the New Year's resolutions we make, and I'm going to lose 50 pounds or whatever, and then you don't do it and it doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? Well, consciously, you might have all the positive thinking that you've got going on in the world. You might say your affirmations every single day in the mirror. But if you don't fundamentally know that who you are and the divinity of yourself, and your subconscious mind is running the show with some other programming, it doesn't matter what positive thinking you spout. The subconscious mind is going to rule the day.
You know how effective it would be in your home when you blew a fuse if you just turned on a flashlight?
Right. Rather than wandering around in the dark?
The flashlight would provide some light, so, you know, it handled the symptom, darkness.
Right.
But you can't operate any of your equipment in the kitchen without the fuse being fixed.
Right.
So on. So it's a little bit like that.
Right. But when you think about your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, what do you say a little bit more about that from the standpoint of science, from the standpoint of metaphysical science? What's that viewpoint there?
Well, in metaphysical science, we approach it from the standpoint that, number one, all is infinite mind.
Yep.
And nobody knows what infinite mind is all about.
Yeah.
But metaphysical science says it's the source and condition of all existence. And if infinite mind is the source and the condition of my existence, that would be what I think he's talking about with the subconscious mind. Because here I am looking like Betty, and I think I have some mind going on, some intelligence functioning. That would be the conscious mind.
Right.
That all is infinite mind. I can say that, I can write about it, I can talk about it, I can work with it, but the breadth and the depth and the scope of infinite mind leaves nothing out anywhere in the constellation, anywhere in the known and unknown universe.
Right. Right.
It's all. You know the meaning of that word, all?
Right.
All is infinite mind.
That's right. And what I love is when you said in a seminar years ago, you said people relate to all, like all is infinite mind, as like all of a box of cereal.
Yep.
You know, you've got a box. Well, the whole box of cereal.
Yeah.
But people don't relate, people don't relate to all like all.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Nothing
like
left
nothing
out.
left. Yeah, nothing left out.
Yeah.
And if you and so we bargain with ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, well, it's all of this box. Oh, not that. Oh, no, 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 not that, but just this.
Yeah, we have this word good the same way.
Yeah.
Mrs. Laird, who was my teacher, used to use the word good like it was a synonym for the God idea.
Yeah.
Infinite good, capital G. And that's what was available in and as every experience of living. And we live that like it's good right here where I'm paying attention right this minute. But over there, he is really wrong.
He's a rat fink.
He is really, really wrong. You
Right.
mustn't pay any attention to him. And over there, that is something you never want to do. And down there,
Right.
oh my goodness.
Yep.
But right here, it's all right.
Yeah. And
So
it's an interesting dilemma, right? But that leads to this whole thing about our belief about here and there.
yeah, and I love the way it was highlighted in Dr. Lipton's book when he talks about how we really are delighted when we handle the symptom.
Yeah.
We'd rather not get into what had the symptom occur.
Right. Well, that goes with the statistics that say that when somebody gets ill or somebody has a disease, and they can either have it cut out surgically or they can change their habits and actually solve the whole thing. The majority of people will opt for surgery.
Hmm.
The majority. I mean, it's stunning, really, when you look at it that way. But
yeah. And the thing we don't recognize is that the answers that show up as a momentary relief do not move us one little tidbit from the problem. And if they are ignored, if that symptom is it and you pay no more attention, the next time it shows up, it will be worse. And if it's ignored again, it will be worse.
yeah.
And then you wonder why, after all these years of clean living and good health and eating the right food, how could I have cancer or COVID-19 or you name it?
Right.
And it's related directly to self-responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, when I look at this and when I said here and there, partly what I'm looking at is, we think that this is the mind or the brain, that the brain is somehow the mind. And that's like common belief. But then later on in this chapter, under emotions, feeling the language of cells, there's a gal named Candace Pert, who did a study on the mechanics of the cell's brain. Okay, the cell's brain, because they all do thinking, they all do know what their thing is.
Yeah.
And she found out that they all have these same neural receptors. So, and then she says the book says her elegant experiments established that the mind was not focused in the head, but was distributed via signal molecules to the whole body.
Yep.
So, and that's just current language. But when you say all is infinite mind, infinitely manifest,
yep.
Then we're talking about consciousness. We're talking about mind, that causative force. Call it the God idea,
yep.
Call it whatever that word is for you. But we're talking about that being the causative force, not brain function, not cellular function even, but beyond that, there's an intelligence present that shapes our ends.
And he calls that energy.
Yeah. Yep.
And, yeah. I got tickled because when he talks about energy, it's all focused on how the individual functions.
Yes.
And he talks about the electrical energy. And at some point back there in the book, he talked about the speed of light. And I got to realizing that if he's talking about all of this thought force, all of this energy constituting the individual, then thinking and thought functioning operates at the speed of light.
Yeah.
And so it is not a miracle when some difficulty disappears. What it is the individual coming to terms with what actually is going on with himself,
Yeah.
functioning as energy,
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledging it and allowing it to take care of whatever was out of order.
Yeah.
Because the little cells move all around and they take care of it.
Right. And what's fun here is also what he says is endowed with the ability to be self-reflective. The self-conscious mind is extremely powerful.
That's right. There is no power greater.
That's right.
mind.
It can observe any program behavior we are engaged in, evaluate the behavior, and consciously decide to change the program.
Yep.
We can actively choose how to respond to most environmental signals and whether we even want to respond at all. The
Yep.
conscious mind's capacity to override the subconscious mind's pre-programmed behaviors is the foundation of free will.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
If you think about that power, and if people when you get a taste of that and the power of that in your living, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Yeah. And so the human,
what metaphysical science says is that this is available to every individual, every single one. You are the world you walk through, and you are the source of all of your living. And you're the only responsible character in your life.
Yep.
You're in charge.
Yeah.
You're the king of the hill. And what you take care of gets taken care of, and what you don't take care of doesn't get taken care of.
It just gets more acute until it gets your attention.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting. So at any rate, this is where the
great fun to find out other language to say what we've been working with.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. And so the Institute of Metaphysical Science is scientificmetaphysics.org. You can find our programs there. We have writings, we have seminars, we have a monthly open mic, and then there's teleseminars. So you can explore this and the teachings of metaphysical science. If that speaks to you, go out there and explore it. We would love to have you come and participate. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and we're happy to address them. Anything else we want to say today?
Well, I'd just like to ask any of the people that are listening in, if you have any books that are doing this kind of discovery about how we live ourselves, I'd love to know them. I haven't seen them all yet, and I just have great fun with them.
Right.
Because I really have lived a long time with this science that says all is infinite mind. And in doing that in my life, problems have been resolved that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
It really covers the waterfront. And so I'm interested in finding that all around me, in all of the various sciences, including sports, by the way, you know, the skiing and tennis and so on, they all are discovering the mental nature of the game they're playing. Golf is another one.
Right. Like inner game of tennis.
Yes.
That.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the inner game of skiing and so on. But all of the people that write on this subject are discovering within their framework of interest where it is absolutely vital that you approach the whole thing mentally.
Yeah.
Because that's where the action is.
Yes.
That's where the control is. That's where perfection exists.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the stuff I'm looking at. It exists as being.
Yeah.
And the stuff I'm looking at is just the best way I can see it at the moment. So it keeps changing anyway, but I can't find a solution there. It changes because I find the solution mentally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So you can find out more at our website. And until then, we'll see you guys next week at the same time, 7 o'clock, between 7 and 7:05. I know we started at 7:05 today, but we come out every week and we have a great conversation. We'll be posting what that's about. And we'll continue this exploration, this conversation. If you post in the comments, let us know, as Betty said, what books have you read that are just really alter that thinking for you in terms of similar kinds of things, just like this book, The Biology of Belief, that we've just covered in 2 different sessions by Bruce Lipton. It's really excellent. So at any rate, anything else for you? One last word, Mom, and then we'll end.
Well, I was just inquiring. We will be on a vacation next week. Are we going to do the Wednesday night program? I know that we're going to be out camping somewhere, and we could do it from there, but I didn't know what your plans were.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So stay tuned.
Okay.
All right. All right, you guys. Thank you for being here. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks.